Good morning, Uncle Ron and stuff. Episode 10, part 4. And my head's full of follow on stuff. In episode 1, 2, 3, I talked about brain. I'm trying to get to consciousness, but first of all, I got to do some more brain thoughts. And what I want to talk about is objects and stereotyping. In computer programming, if you when you write programs, if you have to do the same sort of function, I don't know, like give me what is the number for the cosine of an angle. You don't want to write that same sort of code over and over again every time you need the number for a cosine of an angle. You write a cosine subroutine and make a call to it each time you need it. So it minimizes your writing, and it compartmentalizes or makes objects, if you will, of reoccurring functions. Okay, early computer systems like DOS, you had to type in a command on the screen, excuse me, to do a certain thing. Okay, well, I think it started at Xerox, but the idea came that, well, what if we could, we got the screen here, what if we created some sort of box on the screen that the user could click on with a mouse, which also came out of Xerox, and that then would save the user from typing a command, and the box would do whatever command it had a label on it, and it would say, read file or whatever. So the idea was that uh, visually it would minimize the typing and we could just click on something. Okay, well, it didn't take very long to realize that boxes on screens were objects, and that they shared similar characteristics, like drawing a box and you clicked it, it did a certain function, but also that the box may have different color, it might be a different size, but those were just aspects or characteristics of the same general item, a box. Okay, so the box became an object, and the programmer could use a box sort of subroutine, if you will, and he could define, well, how big a box it is, what label it has, what color it has, other characteristics, and the box would initiate whatever series of program instructions that he linked it to. But he didn't have to recreate the code for a button on the screen every time he wanted one. And then eventually we got icons that represented a function. Click an icon, you start up Internet Explorer or Google or something. Okay. Well, in your brain, you have a similar sort of construct in that being memory based, uh, you lay down a memory of a cat. First time you ever saw a cat, that lays down. Okay, but then you have another experience with a cat, and it's different, but you lay that memory down. Now, in cosmology, you got all these dust particles floating around out there, and gravity is a fundamental attribute of the universe, and gravity over time likes to pull things together. It's like it likes to clump stuff. I think the brain is similar in that you have these memories that are laid down, and they have, I think, chemical signatures. Okay, well, like memories with that have like chemical signatures like to gravitate toward each other or make connections with each other. So there's pathways created through material that start linking any memory you have related to an object. Objects. Uh, we're visually dominated, so that may be the major attribute of an object, but there are other types of attributes as well that can lay down their own memory chemical signatures, and they also may get gravity pulled together or new pathways linked that are kind of esoteric in a sense. Like heat. Uh, the brain, uh, memories are really good to have for a survival tool. You really need to know what you can eat and not eat. You need to know when things are dangerous for self-preservation. You need, you know, things can be hardwired, and they are in lots of different species. But in our case, we have a lot hardwired, like breathing and walking. You don't things like that. But other stuff, experiences, memories, allow you to interact and with a much more diverse environment. And Darwin would say that the brain helped survival of the species because we had memories of things that prevented our deaths or terminations. Okay, so heat is a weird example because if it's something's really hot, you quickly learn not to touch it. It's going to cause pain. But there are other aspects of heat that, you do want heat sometimes. You're cold, so you want to go near something hot. Okay, so there's stoves. Stove is hot. Car mufflers are hot. Engines are hot. Um, Candle flame is hot. All those sorts of things have a heat aspect to them. And in the brain formation, again, if like chemical signatures of and memories are similar, then they try to gravitate toward each other and they make pathways. That makes sense? So any memory has all sorts of attributes to it. And you can go in any direction. Like I said, heat. If you start thinking about all your heat related memories, the first time you got burned, for example, if you do that, it will then trigger other memories of other things, and if you're not careful, it'll trail off into that memory, and you might wind up, in a memory that seems so far removed from heat. How'd you even get there? But it had a similar chemical signature at one time, and a pathway was created. Okay, so that's my theory that we're object-oriented, uh, neural firing machines, and based on memories. Okay, so in the scheme of things, the objects, if you will, like a cat or whatever, and has attributes. Heat is not it's an object in its own self, a classification. It's maybe more a characteristic, and it's applied to whatever object you have. But what I'm leading up to is the neural wiring is a form of stereotyping, and that similar objects or memories get linked together. And stereotyping, we all know about that, and it usually can carry a bad connotation, such as racism, you know. But stereotyping is how our memories are gravity sort of linked together and results in a stereotype. Now, how the memories that are fired and cascade All of them fire, perhaps not instantaneously because there's pathways that the electrical signal, if you will, between these synapses or neural bundles. Uh, they don't necessarily fire instantaneously. Not really. I mean, the brain is actually fairly slow in that aspect. Once upon a time, people thought that driving a car past 30 miles an hour would cause insanity or something because the brain couldn't process it fast enough. We're fast enough to do that, but other things, we're really, really slow compared to electrical maneuvering through a computer. It's way much faster, but it's so much clunkier, and no. Anyway, the whole point of all this is I'm eventually going to try to get to, okay, you fire off a memory, well, at the end, does it all sum up into something that then you are aware of somehow? You must be. But how that summation result, what does the summation of all the memories related to cat give you? I mean, how does it help you in the here and now survive or interact with the current? That's an interesting question to me. If we're memory based and stereotype or object oriented and chemically similar memory signatures get gravitated together through pathways, then how do we come up with something that we can use in the real world here and now? What does it result in? You know, all these firings, but then on top of that, do you need like a super user on a computer? There's a thing called a super user. Do we have another section of our brain that then is stimulated by all of these lower level network memory based firings that somehow can interpret all those things and create, you know, provide with in our consciousness, if you will, how we should respond or precautions we should take or something to ensure our current survival. That's enough of this one. It talked about objects and memories and stereotyping. I urge you to just look at any object. Just objects are easier than heat. Pick an object and just try to remember all the memories you have about that object. Uh, any object at all, it doesn't matter what it is. Tin can, uh, uh, toothpick, uh, pick anything. You can look around and pick any object you want and just try to start remembering everything about that. The first time you ever saw it, what it feels like in your hands. I don't know, just go down and fire as many memory neurons on that particular object as you can. Make it simple, a pen, a pencil, anything. And be careful because you might go off on tangents. A particular member might have a really strong chemical signature adjacent to it that has to do with like the time you jammed a pencil into your finger, you know, and that because of the pain would be a really strong memory, and you might then lead you off into somewhere other territory that would not be related to pencils anymore. So try to stick with pencils or whatever object you pick. Stay away from things like heat. That's way more complex to try to deal with because there'd be a lot of tangents off of that one. But pick an object and just keep trying to memorize it. They tell old people that they should have an active mind. Well, that's one way you can do an active mind is just refresh memories. Pick any object and just follow it. That's enough for today. I talked about stereotyping and how I think maybe neural pathways are created as sort of like gravity of chemical signatures between memories. Anyway, enough for today. I tried this before, but I didn't get any audio recorded. Hopefully, this time it will work. This is episode 10, part 4, on related to thoughts, neural firings, and the brain.